What is up, guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Horizon and I love Souls games. My favorite is Elden Ring. Its lore can be quite confusing for first-time players, so I want to help new players understand what's going on during their first playthrough. There are a ton of lore videos out there that go in depth on a certain aspect of the lore, or give an overall view of the story of the game. But neither of those are really watchable for a first-time player during their playthrough without getting spoiled in a major way. Realizing this, I had the idea to do my own lore videos, but in form of a playthrough. Surprisingly, there aren't many playthroughs like this out there. One example is the Lorethrough of a YouTuber called Eredin. However, he uploaded his playthrough unedited, which makes the overall length a bit too much for most players. Therefore, I think I'm doing something more or less original here, which could be useful both as a guide through the game for new players and a lore explanation for players after they go through an area blind. I will be completing these areas in order where I won't ever be absurdly over or under leveled for an area. So if you're wondering where to go, try to follow my progression route in this playthrough. You should be fine. This episode will still have some tutorial aspects to it, since the start is quite difficult to grasp for new players, and I don't want you to miss any basic gameplay functions. However, future episodes will be significantly more narrative focused. After this display of what this series is going to be, let's create our character. I'm sure you will spend more time here than me. I'm just going to pick the prophet and not do much other editing. The lore of the starting classes is explained well in a video by a YouTuber called Smotown. However, it contains spoilers, so the description of the class you pick up will have to do for now. I will be using a pure faith build for this run, however you should pick yourself what kind of build you choose, since pretty much everything is viable in this game. I do this because many of the lore relevant spells and weapons are faith based. I can show them off nicely this way. Also, faith is my favorite archetype in this game in general, and it is extremely strong. No matter what class you choose though, I recommend taking the Golden Seed as a gift, since it gives you an extra healing flask in the early game. Now let's have a look at the opening cutscene to get a basic understanding of the state of the world we are dropped into. The first frames show the Elden Ring being shattered by a blonde lady who is revealed as Queen Marika. This seems to have been the defining event that led to the age we currently live in. The next scene shows the demigod Godwyn the Golden being murdered in an event called the Night of the Black Knives by a group of assassins. He seems to have been the first demigod to die. The other demigods claimed shards of the shattered Elden Ring, which appears to be an object with the power to rule the world. So a great power. They're children of Marika, so it is heavily implied that Marika is a god. Having obtained a fraction of this power, it seems the demigod wanted more and went to war with each other. The war was called the Shattering, which is not to be confused with the event of the Elden Ring being shattered, which happened much earlier. The war had no winner. The entity known as the Greater Will is also mentioned here. More on the Greater Will in future episodes. For now, just think of it as the biblical god, a sort of omniscient creator entity that is even above Queen Marika. Since the war has left the lands between in ruins, a group of Tarnished have been revived to restore the order. As for who the player character and the other Tarnished are, nobody explains it better than the game director Miyazaki himself. The people who live in the lands between have a golden glow in their eyes from the grace of the Earth Tree, Some people, however, lost that glow, and they were called the Tarnished and exiled from the Lands Between. The player character and the other Tarnished who appear in the game are descendants of such people. After the Elden Ring was shattered, the Guidance of Grace appeared to the Tarnished and others who could not die, telling them to return to the Lands Between, gain audience with the Elden Ring, and become the Elden Lord. And that is how the game begins. It seems your goal is clear. Stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord. But how is that possible? How can you stand before the Elden Ring if it is shattered? Simple. You have to obtain the shards that the demigods possess and then mend the Elden Ring. Also, the Earth Tree was mentioned here. It is the golden tree that you can see in the distance from pretty much anywhere in the game. And it seems to be the destination of your journey where the Elden Ring is. Okay, so that was a lot to take in at once. A story of how this world fell into ruin and is in dire need of repair. I left parts of the explanation vague since I didn't want to use information that is obtained later for this breakdown. After waking up in the Chapel of Anticipation, you are almost immediately greeted by a many-armed beast called the Grafted Scion. The name answers the question of why this thing has so many arms, which is grafting. But whose scion is it? We will find this out very soon. Anyways, unless you pick the samurai class and manage to cheese this thing with fire arrows, you will more likely die, since this foe is too strong to defeat. After you get defeated, a cutscene plays where you receive your flask from a mysterious lady with a horse. She talks about violating the Golden Order. The only thing we can infer about the Golden Order so far is that it is the set of laws that Marek has implemented in the Lands Between, and that we at some point may or may not have to violate them to reach our goals. You then drop down to the right if you want to complete the tutorial. And after you do that, you should go up the elevator that you can see on the left here, and not, like I am doing right now, go for the fog gate on the right. If you followed my advice and took the golden seed, you can't open this anyways. But just in case you pick the Storm Sword keys, which is a valid choice for a starting gift, do not use them here yet. You will die, this zone is way too high level. Instead, step out into the beautiful light of Limgrave. This is the starting zone of the game, and the first thing you will see is most likely this NPC, Vare. He will tell you to look for a guiding maiden, the strength of runes, and an invitation to the Round Table Hold. It also explains what the Guidance of Grace does, and gives you your first main story goal, to defeat the demigod Godric the Grafted. And hey, just by hearing the name of the Lord of Limgrave, we already solved the allegiance of both the Grafted Scion and the Soldier of Godric, which were the two bosses that we have met so far. One advice I can offer you is that if you talk to an NPC, always keep talking to them until they repeat themselves. This can be vital later to obtain key items or progress NPC quest lines. If you follow the Guidance of Grace, the first thing you will see is your first field boss, the Tree Sentinel. You can see me get absolutely destroyed in one hit by this guy, so the same thing goes as for the Grafted Scion. He is too strong for you at the moment and you should come back later, unless you are a hardened Souls veteran. Rest at the Church of LA and talk to the merchant Kale. The merchants are wandering people that have been spurned by the grace of gold. As such, they aren't accepted anywhere, and they are forced to wander and defend themselves and each other without help. Follow his advice and get the crafting kit, then keep moving towards the Gatefront ruins, and pick up the whetstone knife, the map fragment, and perhaps one or two of these weapons. You can also kill a bunch of these to get some early runes. After resting at the Gatefront site of Grace, the mysterious woman from before will introduce herself as Melina. She offers to play the role as your maiden, turning runes into strength. Accept and you will now be able to level up at any site of Grace. She also gives you a ring to summon a spectral horse named Torrent, the horse she was in possession of before. You should either add this ring to your equipment slot or bind it to one of the D-pad combinations. You can press with Y or triangle on your controller. You can now see where you are going with the map you picked up, and you can add Ashes of War, which are special attacks used with the left trigger or L2 on your controller, to your weapons with the whetstone knife you found. This means you are now ready to keep following the guidance of Grace, or explore the vast open world of this masterpiece. Thank you so much for watching this introductory video into this Lorethrough. As I said, I want everybody to grasp the basic mechanics of this game to be able to experience it fully. Therefore, today's episode was much more educational than future episodes. Since this was my first video, please give me tips to improve future videos in the comments. And I will see you next time when we cover Limgrave. Since this was my first video, please give me tips to improve future videos in the comments. And I will see you the next time when we will cover Southern Limgrave, the first proper area in this game. She tells you the goal of your journey together too, namely the Earth Tree, the yellow tree you can see all the time in the distance.